Please can you say who you are and what you teach?
Hi, I'm Ian Wells from the Department of Psychology. I teach cyber psychology and also our first year mental wealth module.
Why did you decide to implement AR and VR in your teaching?
Psychology at UEL's got a long history of VR research going back to the 1990s, and really because the technology is now at such a sensible price, it's given us an opportunity to actually be able to put some of that experience in the hands of our students so they can actually get a much more practical sense of what can be done with VR.
What are the main benefits of using this pedagogical approach?
I think the big thing that we've found over the few years that we've been doing this now is gradually moving to a model where we put the technology in the hands of the students rather than going, this is what we want you to do with it. We've done a lot more now of going, here's the technology, here's how the software works, what would you do with it? And I think that's been a real benefit, just a practical benefit in engaging more students with it. But also, I think it's starting to produce some really interesting work from the students as well.
What has been the feedback from your students so far?
Honestly, it's changed over time. I think initially, when we want you to do this, this is how you do this, you must do this, press this button, press that button. I think we ended up in a situation where a relatively small percentage of them thought it was the most wonderful thing ever, and a lot of them were frankly a bit confused by why we were being asked them to do it. But now we've switched over to just get the stuff in the hands of the students and say to them, okay, what would you do with this? That's been much more successful. I think we've engaged a lot more of the students, and we're then getting a lot of really great ideas from students about what they might do with the technology. So I think actually that switch of just putting it in the hands of the students and saying to them, you get on with it, it's really been beneficial in terms of their response to it.
Has your pedagogical approach evolved over time with the technology and the learning spaces you have available to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we first started, we were looking at doing this technology in a typical classroom sort of lecture hall setup where you're demonstrating stuff to students, but really they're sitting there looking at a demonstration. And although it was getting the message across, in practice it's much harder work to do that. But now we've got a space which is much more practical for doing this sort of hands-on work. It's enabled us to switch round to this model of just getting the technology to the students. And one of the things I think that's enabled us to do is, psychology as a discipline doesn't necessarily lend itself to the use of technology, because actually a lot of what we do is quite sort of academic-y stuff. But what we've been able to do is just say to students, even if you're interested in going into something like counselling, you're going to be working with people who might be using this technology. You ought to know how people interact with this technology. So just come and have a go with it so you know what it does. And I think that's being able to do that has been really positive. And then the knock-on effect of that is now we've got the tech and the space available. It's enabled us to say to students, well, look, you might have ideas for using this technology outside of the subject in, things you do outside of university. We're quite happy to lend you the technology, a 360 camera and the like. if you want to go and record something outside. And that's produced some fascinating ideas from students. And I think I'm increasingly now seeing this stuff as actually something that's part of the sort of employability and mental wealth curriculum as much as it is part of the psychology curriculum. The knock-on benefit is that, if I end up with, a dozen students in the third year using virtual reality as part of their psychology dissertation, brilliant. But actually, the real thing now is that we've got, every year, 100 plus psychology graduates who know what virtual reality equipment does.
Well, thank you very much, Ian, for your time. It was great speaking with you.